My school was predominantly South Asian. So my understanding or experience with race in high school was, um, probably a little bit biased to what might be considered to be, a minority experience, let's say. I mean, Ilford is a very heavily South Asian community. It's very well mixed, as lots of places are in London. So there was never that feeling in high school that, oh, you're different, because we weren't. We were just us. And there are the stereotypes around people from South Asia about being very studious and being very hardworking, and all the other sort of cultural stereotypes, which we all made fun of. There were, lots of people were doing lots of different things, and at least in my immediate social circle, where we were high achieving, but we were also very into doing other things like music and just having a good time. That sort of feeling of fulfilling a particular role in society wasn't really there. We were just wanting to do well because we wanted to do well, and we were willing to work hard for it. And that's something you have to do no matter who you are or where you're from, in my experience. You don't have any natural, you might have some natural abilities, but it's hard work that will, to do anything that you want to do, you just have to work hard at it, irrespective of who you are. As I got older, I realized how lucky I was for a number of reasons, going to a nice school, having parents that were supportive of me. But yeah, you start to realize, especially when I kind of got to this stage of academia, I looked around me, I was like, okay, wait, I actually am a minority now. There aren't a lot of people like me here. And I don't really have an immediate answer as to why that is. But thinking about it, I was like, okay, there are a lot of different reasons, and not necessarily tied to race, why people may not choose this particular career path. I was lucky to have a teacher that was inspiring, who had gone through this sort of research thing and was able to teach physics well, to illustrate how interesting of a subject it is, because it's, of course, a very difficult subject. And while I am doing physics, and maybe on some level that could be considered to be a stereotypical South Asian sort of thing to do, doing just straight up research is perhaps maybe not as stereotypical as your standard doctor, engineer, lawyer. And maybe in those professions, obviously I can't really comment, there is better representation. So yeah, getting into academia, there are a lot of things that I think prevent people from going all the way. There's a lot of, I don't want to say misinformation, but there's a lot of demystifying that needs to happen about what academic life is like. We do drop off in stages. Of course, there's the GCSE level, there's the A level, and then there's university, and then there's after university. And I would probably think that a big part of it is just a lack of quality teaching. And it could explain why you see disparity in not only race, but you see disparity in gender, you see disparity in socioeconomic background, where only a select few privileged people, and I am definitely privileged in many ways, they have access to things that make it easier for them to get into. Because if you're a kid who's being taught by a physics teacher who doesn't really know a great deal about physics, who has the bare minimum qualifications, who's overworked, not particularly passionate about teaching because of the systems that are in place, it doesn't surprise me that you don't get many people interested in academia. You're only 18 years old, and you don't know much about the world, as much as you might think otherwise. And so it's this process of just, your eyes being open to the world as a bigger place and other people from all sorts of different places. And you inevitably encounter things that are unusual to you. So, for example, I don't drink, but a big part of university culture is going out and drinking and, going to clubs and et cetera, et cetera. And, while I never directly partook in that, I was, again, lucky enough to have friends who, didn't see that as a problem or didn't think I was weird because of it. And at least in my experience of it, I, felt, perfectly welcome, and I was able to, be a part of that experience even if I wasn't directly doing it. So that was, I was always lucky to have that. And it's funny because it teaches you to also become tolerant of other people, because there are things that you might hold true to be, in the world, and it's like, oh, this has to be this way or this has to be that way, but you sort of realize that there is no real absolute in anything. And so that, that's that's the process of growing up and becoming, a better, well-rounded person. And fortunately in my life, at least to my knowledge, I haven't really had to deal with any major direct, racism or problems because of, where I come from. And again, that's just me. I was, lucky enough to be, with friends or be, involved with professionals who didn't really see that as a problem. But I am aware that, representation, at least, when you get to my level, is poor in a number of different ways. Not just race, it's also poor in gender, it's poor in sexuality, it's poor in socioeconomic background. And there are reasons why that is the case. And you talk to people who may not have been, as fortunate, and have had to deal with, horrible things. But you realize that in spite of that, they're still able to have very successful careers. And it's through those, unfortunate incidents that things start to slowly improve. And, gradually things do get better. And UCL is good in many ways, but it's definitely not perfect. And there are always support structures that are in place for this sort of thing. And while you may encounter some resistance or some hesitation about speaking up about this sort of thing, whether it's, I would have to make a complaint against my supervisor or somebody who's quite prominent in the department, I think it's always important to pursue that. And there are always going to be people who will be on your side. I would hope that nobody's ever in a place where they're totally isolated, but there are always people who are willing to help you do the right thing. And it's important to know that no matter how minor or inconsequential it might seem to you, if it does make you uncomfortable or if you feel like it's wrong, then it's wrong. But I know it's not always easy to have the courage to speak up about it, whether directly to the aggressor or through those support systems, however they might be. And unfortunately, there is a tendency for places to be of, if you speak up, you might get some help, but if you don't, nobody's going to come asking for you. And when you are a person who's potentially vulnerable, whether it be a student or a person from a minority or underrepresented, it can be quite difficult, because all of that time you spend pursuing this problem or trying to make things right is time that you have to take away from your actual work, which is not always what people want to do. So it's tough, but I think there are always support structures there. Things do improve with time. They're not perfect, but we can at least do our part to try and make it better.